Hello, this is Angela with Park Rose Permaculture. It is the end of an unseasonably hot day in May in Portland, Oregon. It got up to 91 degrees today, and we've also had pretty significant winds. So what we're looking at right now is my purple robe locust in the front yard, and the combination of the wind and the heat, it is drooping real hard. This tree will get at least 25 feet when it's mature, but it is a very fast grower because it is a pioneer species. It's a legume, and that means because it grows very quickly, it is prone to weak tissues and bending and breaking. I think it will do fine with a good drink of water and a reduction in the heat after tomorrow, and also if the winds knock it off. I think it's also struggling because it's just so laden with all these blossoms. This is only a 1.5-year-old tree. I wanted to show you all, if I can find them. I know I'm losing the light. This tree, I just got back from my run, and as I was walking up to the front of the house, I noticed that this tree was covered in bumblebees. They keep ducking in and out of the blossoms. So it's about 8 in the evening, and this is the prime time for bumblebees to be foraging before they go to bed. I don't know if we'll see any in them. But that's a good reason if you have to spray. Just like don't spray when things are flowering, even organic sprays, and don't spray even in the evening because there are quite a lot of pollinators out late, right before dusk, especially if it's been really hot during the day. So I wanted to discuss the permaculture concept of polyculture. So in polyculture, obviously that means cultivating many things. Monoculture is our standard industrial agricultural system where we plant acres and acres or fields and fields all of one crop. Makes it much easier for mechanical harvest. I'm sorry, my phone is having some trouble focusing. Makes it much easier for mechanized harvest and sorting and the industrial method of food production. I'm going to keep looking for bees here. Oh, here's another one while I'm talking. There she is. See if I can get my camera to focus on her. Drinking. Hey, baby. These kind of leguminous blossoms where you have to kind of force your way in a little bit as a pollinator and therefore get covered with pollen in order to get the nectar. Bumblebees love that shape of a flower. Whereas honeybees prefer more of an open-faced flower. This tree is also really popular for hoverflies, and I've seen hummingbirds feeding off of it. Oh, she's really busy. Okay, so in permaculture, the concept of polyculture is that by spreading out plants that are exactly the same, you reduce disease pressure, right? So disease transmission is less because it's more difficult for diseases and also other pests to travel from plant to plant, and just by sheer nature of less population density, right? So for me, this means that in my front yard I grow one apple tree, which is this tree right here, Hudson's Golden Gem, and my other apple trees are dispersed around the backyard. And it also means in polyculture, it doesn't mean just not growing everything of one type of plant altogether. It means intentionally diversifying and planting plants that support each other. So this purple robe locust is here. I talked about it in an earlier video. It's here as a support plant because my front yard is very sunny, and it's too sunny and too hot, and I found that we weren't out here very much because it was so sunny and hot in the summer. But also this tree here, which is one of my young pawpaws, and this tree, which is also a pawpaw, they need some shade when they're younger. When they were smaller, I actually had them caged and had sheets over them because they get sunburn. And the fastest way to kill your young pawpaw is to expose it to intense sunshine when it would be growing in an understory normally. So even so, until these pawpaws get very mature, it'd be nice to give them a little more shade. Same for some of the other plants up here that kept getting sunburned. Honeyberries get sunburned easily. So I put in this tree because I wanted to provide some shade for the plants and for us. And also because it fixes nitrogen in the soil. And also because it's a really good bee food. And also it's pretty. Okay, so in polyculture, we're talking about growing plants together that are mutually beneficial. They're going to support each other and help each other, as well as spacing out plants that are the same so that we reduce disease pressure on them. Sometimes in polyculture, you talk about successional polyculture, where things I'm putting in early on are not going to be there forever. I have a feeling I'm going to take out this purple robe locust. You can see where our greenhouse is going to go. Taking out this purple robe locust down the road sometime in 20 years when we don't need it anymore. So polyculture doesn't mean that you plant a diversity of things and they're just set in stone. Permaculture is permanent agriculture and permanent culture, but that doesn't mean that it is, here's a blueberry, it doesn't mean that you don't make changes over time. In fact, with polyculture, we try to mimic succession in nature, but we speed up that process, often dramatically. This is one of the first blueberries I put in, by the way, and you can see it's loaded. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't put blueberries here, but it's very happy. So sometimes that means as you're mimicking Mother Nature, you're trying to get a succession going. It means that you take things out, things that would have initially been pioneer species, things that you're going to produce mulch, to fix nitrogen, to prep an area for the more established plants that are going to be dominant later, just as it would happen in nature, except that in permaculture, we're assisting that process. That's all still valid polyculture. That's all still a totally acceptable way of doing things and an encouraged way of doing things in permaculture. Here you can see my Triple Crown blackberry is just starting to think about blooming. In front is a blueberry. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't put it here. But again, it's happy. Russian Bakken comfrey, more comfrey. This is one plant, by the way. My neighbors are getting home. So we want to think about growing plants together in a way that they're going to help each other. And I'm going to do a video on this probably tomorrow because I'm losing the light now, where we talk about growing things in guilds. And I often see people new to permaculture get really fixated on the concept of a guild. I have to have a dominant fruit tree, and what can I plant around it as support plants, and I have to get it just right. And once you get into permaculture and you have a lot more experience with the plants and their habits and your conditions on your site, it's okay to loosen up that like really tight grip on like, I need to have a set guild going. What is an apple guild? What is a plum guild? And sometimes your needs for what your more dominant, larger crop producing plants are going to change depending on the maturity of your trees. They're going to change depending on your conditions on your site, the availability of what you have, and like sometimes what may work in someone's polyculture may not work where you are because you have different disease pressures and different soil conditions. Or you may have a different amount of time that you can donate to the garden, right? That you can actually spend working on things. So we're going to talk about that, the permaculture concept of guilds as an institution and an aspect of polyculture. But for right now, while I'm losing the very end of the light here, I did want to discuss that notion that in permaculture we are growing plants in a diverse array and arrangement of perennials and annuals. It's hard to show you all now. This is all underplanted with pumpkins and summer squash and things that are either not germinated yet or are going to be germinating. Everywhere I stick a stick in the ground, there's pumpkins. They just haven't come up yet because it's only the first week of May. And if I plant them earlier than that, they just get eaten by squirrels or crows, or they rot in the ground. So we're having a diversity of annuals and perennials and beneficial plants, insectiary plants, plants that deter pests, plants that confuse pests, plants that draw in pollinators, plants that provide shade or improve soil conditions in some way, plants that, oh, that's my poodles, plants that bring beauty and make you want to be out in the garden more and more. Hey, if I have a carpet of beautiful flowers, if I have this calendula that I really love and I want to come out and pick it for bouquets or to make salves out of, I'm going to be more likely to come out and be looking at my persimmon, which is about to flower. I won't focus for you in the evening. And, like just check out how that plant's doing as long as I'm right next to it picking my calendula. So having pretty flowers makes you be out in the garden more and interacting more with some of your other aspects, some of your other plants that you might not otherwise visit as much. So I hope that helped give you a little brief introduction to the concept of polyculture and permaculture. And I'll make a video coming up this week when our heat wave is over, discussing some of the guilds we have around our property and some of the ways I have changed those guilds over time as I have become a more experienced gardener over the last 20 years and as I have learned what things do and don't work for my location. All right, well, I hope y'all stay cool. Portland's got one more day of hot weather. I will be painting indoors, I think. And I'll be back the first of the week. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and please subscribe to my channel and let me know what kinds of videos about permaculture you would like to see. Thanks.